So welcome to Tea with Tea. I know it's been a while. Just sort of doing a pulse check, a wellness check to see how everyone is doing again. I mean, a lot has happened this year and it is okay to not be okay. It is also to be okay to be okay. I feel that we are a combination of our lived experiences, and I kind of just wanted to reflect on some of the things that are kind of transpiring in the world, because what we know now is going to be somewhat of the norm for the next year or so. And so, and a lot of world events also need to be dissected. So, for example, I came across an interesting definition of hatred. When we experience hatred, we are rejected on the basis of a physical characteristic, belief system, or another marker that those with more power and resources than ourselves have constructed as undesirable. Extreme expressions of hatred can culminate in genocide. And what's happening to Black people in present day and over multiple generations is nothing short of genocide. And I'm also going to relate to something with respects to Tamil people in post-colonial Sri Lanka, where we commonly refer to Black July as an act of genocide. And this genocide that kind of transpired post-colonial Sri Lanka has been going on till, by the books, 2009. Off the books, still, the effects are running rampant and will not be seen until generations down the line. But so just to kind of educate people, I like to observe, I like to learn, I like to reflect, and then kind of speak on what I feel on the issue, and that's just how I process things. So for the Tamil community, according to the Tamil Guardian and other sources, Black July was an anti-Tamil program of 1983 when thousands of Tamils were killed by Sinhala mobs backed by the then UNP government and state forces. So in the island of Sri Lanka, which is south of India, to kind of give you a geographical concept, is inhabited by two ethnic groups, which is the Sinhalese and the Tamils. So upon the departing of the British government, you had the Sinhalese that were left in positions of power and Tamils as the minority. And we know how important representation is. So Sinhala mobs at this time targeted Tamil homes and businesses, looting and ransacking property. They were driven from their homes, particularly in the capital, which is Colombo. Over 1,000 Tamils were massacred, while thousands more were effectively deported by the state to the northeast. Eyewitnesses reports describing mobs chasing Tamils down the street with knives and setting them on fire alive. Hundreds of women were raped. Tamil political prisoners were locked up in jail deep within the island's south. They were also targeted as prison guards allowed Sinhala inmates to slaughter them. Now, this is not just one isolated event. There were several. And, you are free to correct me if I'm wrong. But in 1956, over 150 Tamils were killed in the eastern province. 2 years later, in 1958, there were riots that killed over 300 people. In 1977, you had the UNP that came into power, and, there were anti-Tamil riots that left another 300 dead. And this has transpired and, went into legislation with the Sinhala Act that kind of promoted all things Sinhalese, from religion to culture, etc., which kept a lot of Tamil people out of opportunities for education, advancements, right to housing, etc., right? So a lot of practices were embedded to keep us out. And if you talk to your parents or your grandparents or anybody around that time, to talk about what they recall, it's like a no-go. They will not go there because it's a lot of PTSD, right? So, surviving that PTSD, migrating, the act of leaving everything that you know, coming to a foreign land and picking up whatever job that you could, not knowing the language, not knowing the system, not knowing what school's going to look like for your children, not knowing if your identity is going to be preserved, if it's going to be taken away. Like, you don't know, but you're going to take a gamble on it with your life and your family in a different country. That in itself is PTSD. So growing up, it was just a lot of balancing for me personally. And I'm grateful that we are in a country that does afford opportunity. Now, that is on a surface level. Our generation, for example, knows exactly how or the effects that various institutions and the actors of those institutions have on the lives of children, specifically Black people. And there was something that I wrote a while back to kind of put this into perspective for someone that wasn't able to relate. So I said, Black children have been deprived of any innocence that childhood was supposed to warrant. We're having to play tug of war with helping Black children affirm and truly understand their self-worth, because institutions such as schools pick on them for their behavior, not understanding that some children need to be stimulated with more than just one way, right? So now we acknowledge that there's different learning styles, that you can't always tell people to sit down in a desk and just kind of regurgitate what the teacher is teaching you. Like, it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't engage you in any way. So we have to rethink how our schools engage children and different learning styles. And we want to look at the creation of a safe space while children are free to learn and explore. Then you have the criminal justice system that imposes on Black children as early as ages 11 or 12. I don't understand why we have a juvenile system. Because it robs you of your dignity and any real autonomy that you have over your own life when, actors or enforcers of these institutions are interrogating children when they're on their way to school, practice, home. Every time a child leaves the safety and comfort of your home, they are constantly being attacked in very subtle and indirect ways. Over time, you see that the child is no longer a fun, loving, smiling person that you used to know, but rather they carry this weight on their shoulders. And to rise above all these setbacks that a lot of people would view as minor is very difficult when people are looking at you and telling you that you can't based on the color of your skin. Then, this child is like, okay, I'm going to become an adult. Like, what place is there for me in this world? How am I being set up to succeed? And even in the workplace, will they see me for my capability, for my potential, for my intelligence? Or am I going to be kept in this deadlock for the rest of my life? And as a child of immigrants that were forced to leave their homeland in the midst of a civil war, that suffered from PTSD, the upbringing conditions of young Black children and families are similar to that of war. Access to limited resources, streamlining out of getting jobs that you qualify for, unable to rent a house because the haves operate from a place of prejudice. To be honest, I'm tired from my Black brothers and sisters, and I just want you to know, long after the protests lose its momentum, because that's what a lot of actors or enforcers of institutions rely on, I want you to really consider how we are going to go about implementing systemic changes so that our governments, our policies and practices truly promote our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and provide the once marginalized to now being included on all four fronts. So really, that's kind of my message to everybody. I know this podcast is a little short and sweet and kind of gave you a lot to think about. I just really want you to know that whatever space that you are in, it is very important for you as a Black, as a brown, as an Asian, or any other person to occupy those spaces, because your voice is very important. Anywhere where someone tells you that you shouldn't be is probably where you should be. And I want you to know that you are a source of wealth and knowledge, and that I want you to be able to utilize those skills in order to uplift people. I personally want to get to a position where the better that I can do for myself, the more I can do for someone else. That's the kind of premise or the mentality that I operate with. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Have tea with tea. Episode probably 3. And I'll try and be more consistent with this, I promise.